This episode's special guest on Tripod is Alex Cook, co-founder, group managing partner, and general manager Americas of acclaimed integrated marketing, communications, and design agency ePurple, a company very well known indeed and widely respected in our industry, as indeed is Alex himself, an Englishman and a very proud one at that. Alex is based in Polanco, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Mexico City, where he set up ePurple Americas in early 2024, I believe. Now, today the company, ePurple, has thriving operations in Asia, Europe, South Africa, and courtesy, of course, of the Mexican operation, just a touch of additional Latin salsa. Now, besides being an outstanding communications professional on a mission, rather nice mission, to purple the world, Alex has another claim to fame. He is a rugby international, the only one, I believe, currently working in travel retail, and we'll find out, no doubt, for whom he has won his international caps. Enough from me. Let's hear from our special guest, Alex Cook. Welcome to Tripod.
Thank you very much, Martin. Roger, great to be with you.
We're privileged and excited to have you with us, Alex. We've been running Tripod for a while now. We're back with a new series, and to have you as our first guest on that is great. So I'm going to pass over to my partner in crime, Roger. Let's kick off.
Let's start, as we always do, at the very beginning. So Martin mentioned, obviously, you're based in Mexico, but we know your life's been quite a nomadic journey. So tell us about that early life, a bit more around where you grew up, education, family, and then that first real job that we all wait for.
I've been trying for the last 20 plus years in what I'm doing right now. But yeah, to take a step back, I mean, firstly, I thank you for having me on this podcast. I didn't realize that I was the sort of first in the rebirth of it. So a bit of pressure there to bring some value to your listeners and get this rolling again. But I think it's a great initiative. So a bit on me personally, as Martin said, I'm British. Born and raised in Worcestershire, but then had a very fortunate life to date with stints living in Greece in my childhood, then university in Nottingham, then started my career in London before moving to Singapore, where I was based for 13 years. Truly an amazing period in the world where Asia really started to boom, and you know, the industry itself benefited so much from that, particularly with the Chinese. Loads of incredible experiences, both on a personal level and work level, living there. And then, yeah, not too long ago, year and a half ago, I decided to go from one end of the spectrum to the other when you really exchange life in Singapore for life in Mexico City. And quite the contrast, quite the adjustment, a really exciting part of the journey, and one that now, after sort of getting my feet under the table and getting used to life in Mexico, is really starting to be a great place to live and learning and experience lots of amazing stuff. My son is Mexican or half Mexican, half British, and so moved there for him to be closer to his family. But also, when you looked at the geography of where ePurple was set up, you know, we had operations that were very well established in Asia through Singapore and Hong Kong, growing smaller operations, but operations well established nonetheless in London, Paris and Cape Town, but we had nothing in the Americas. And when you look at our vision as a company, wanting to purple the world, and you know, that's kind of a play on obviously our company name, but also the values of the color purple. When you think about wisdom, creativity, imagination, and that's the origins of the company name. we want to offer these global solutions to global brands in global channels, and the Americas was kind of a white space for us. And so we took that opportunity really to establish an operation in the Americas. I think Mexico was a bit left field. You know, we could have been in Miami, we could have been in New York, where a lot of the brand centers are. But actually, we felt Mexico offered us a different model, very much closer to the Hispanic and Latin market, but with the ability to still service North America, Canada, and the Caribbean, as well as places further south, with a different operating cost base as well. So not the normal move. Um, I always tell this story that what took me 24 hours in Singapore to establish a company took me 3 months in Mexico with a lot of paperwork and a lot of handwritten handwritten sort of documents and all that kind of stuff. But you know, that's the journey that the country is on at the moment, and yeah, it's a huge potential market in its own right domestically. So yeah, really, really exciting.
Alex, you've obviously founded your own company now. Me and Martin have obviously both done that ourselves, and it's I think it's fair to say it's not an easy challenge. And obviously you've been very successful. Can you describe a bit around the We Purple journey and why you think it's been so successful?
I often ask myself if I had my time again, would I do this? But fundamentally, the answer I come to every time is yes. So I guess that says something in that the highs are outweighing the lows. But you know, there are those sleepless nights, that risk, that sense of responsibility for those that are dependent on you. And I'm talking mostly there about the staff and the families of the staff. And I think we've transitioned in the last, probably since COVID, from being pretty much a small company to maybe medium sized now. I mean, not by standards of those within you know, within the industry and the big multinationals, but you know, for an agency, we're now you know, a pretty relevant size, and we've seen that that really changes the dial on how we operate as a company. The absolutely crucial role that people and culture plays within the business, the investment that we have to put behind that, and the amount of time kind of as management and the leadership team and the board that put on people matters. I mean, we're a service business ultimately, so our value really lies in the quality and the output of our people. And I think what I've learned is that you've just got to stay true to what your vision is. You've got to take the hits because they always come probably when you least expect it. And the moment you start to get comfortable, you can be sure that something is going to give you a slap and remind you that, you know what, you still got to keep at the top of your game, and you still got to keep showing up in the, you know, on the good days and the bad days. And that resilience is crucial to any business owner. I think you guys would probably both agree. And obviously we
Yeah.
worked quite closely through the pandemic period. You know, everyone points at the pandemic as, you know, as that biggest shock that the travel retail ever had, even though as an industry, you know, they've ridden regional and local sort of turbulence and, you know, quite consistently. That was the big one. And that ability to adapt, but to just really roll up your sleeves and work hard. And an example of that was the virtual travel retail expo with yourself, Martin, and which Roger you kindly supported so well. It's that ability to evolve and adapt and just keep agile with what you're offering to the market that still adds value, and not just trying to sell the same old thing.
It does, you know, and the, the constant questioning of, am I really doing this, or should I be doing this? Is it good for my health? I used to often say I hated my boss. I had a love-hate relationship with my own company, but overall, of course, the highs do override the lows, or you hope they do. But you're never safe, because we know how many independent businesses fail, and you know, most do not make it. Most startups do not make it, and we're three examples of startups that, you know, touch wood, have done that. That must have been, I guess, quite formative for you, though, in terms of how exposed your business was at one point, and you know, maybe lessons learned for the future.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what we thought was our biggest strength turned in almost overnight into probably our biggest weakness. And we had an excellent year in 2019, a record year, and real momentum, really strong relationships with our client base, and the phone was ringing frequently with new opportunities, and then it just got cut at the knees. And yeah, from that point on, I started to really think about the composition of our business and whether we should concentrate so much either on one region, one market, one channel, one category even, which we never did by design, but actually it was just you follow where the wind is blowing, right? And it takes you in that direction. But we definitely started to develop more of a strategy of diversification, looking to apply the same skills that we do so well in travel retail, but applying that to other premium retail channels, particularly in domestic markets, working with the same brands that we still understand how to translate their brand DNA into retail experiences or communication strategies, and really try to diversify that and not just be a pure play travel retail specialist, but have a wider outlook on what we now call global channels.
We came through, of course, that massive speed bump started to resurface, I suppose, in 22, really, wasn't it? But as Roger and I spoke about earlier on our introduction, the industry's facing some pretty stern challenges right now. Just briefly, how are you reading the industry
Mm.
state of health? You talk to a lot of brands in particular and some very key retailers. Alex, what's the vibe and what's your vibe?
I don't think anybody's sitting comfortably right now. Uh, and it appears to me to be more structural and more long lasting than any of these sort of short term or even long term issues like COVID. The the investment community, shareholders are no less demanding on their return. But what we see on the numbers and the business is that just isn't translating into sales, and spend per pax is really declining. And if you break down the word travel and retail, I just looking at the numbers and latest figures from the World Travel and Tourism Council that the GDP of travel and tourism worldwide last year was $11 trillion. Trillion. Okay, that's that's the money that's being spent. That's 10% of the global GDP is spent on travel and tourism. So there's a huge amount of money being spent. But my feeling here is that the consumer mindset's shifted and they're spending on other things, experiences we talk about a lot, but just not spending in the channel. So the relevancy of the channel is kind of really under question here. You can compound that with, some of the issues around certain nationalities still not coming back to where they were and probably never will. We're talking Chinese, the Daegu measures, Korea, etc. Category level issues, the price of cocoa, tariffs on and legislation on cognac as an example. There are just these multitude of minor things that is chipping away at each of the businesses. And I think that really causes the industry the need to look in the mirror. And those that adapt and evolve will do well because the fundamentals of the business and the reason why we've been championing this channel for so long still exist. And the consumers are still there physically, not just digitally, but they're not being converted. So that question's got to be why. And look, you see some changes within the retailer community. You see some retailers absolutely threatened to their core because of the way they positioned their business over the last decade, particularly in Asia, I'm talking about here. You're seeing divestment in certain spaces as well, but you're also seeing greater amount of responsibility on the shoulder of fewer retailers. And so that's a really really important responsibility of those retailers because they're fundamental. They're the glue between the airport and the brand, and they're going to be defining the business model by the amount they bid on contracts, the overall strategies, and fundamentally they're the keepers of the experience. So what are they doing to become an experience company as opposed to necessarily a pure retail company? Those are the sorts of challenges that I think as an industry that we really need to get behind.
I suspect a lot of that you would be nodding away quite sagely. You have very close relationships with the retailers through your business, but of course with brands as well. Any reaction to what Alex has just said?
I think it does. You use the word resonate, Alex, and it completely resonates. I think, we are really lucky in one aspect that generally speaking, passenger numbers are at least static, if not growing in most areas of the world. So if I was a domestic retailer, and obviously I've managed them in the past in my career, their biggest number one goal is to get people through the door. And then they're very certain that they will convert. And I'm talking more supermarket style retailing here. So if they can get people through the door, which they will do through offering cheap fuel, promotions, club cards, advertisements, special events, you name it, supermarkets will do whatever they can to get people through the front door. We are, and always have been in many aspects, we're very lucky that we've got lots of people who want to come through our front door, as in terms of they want to come to airports or they have to come to airports. I think my biggest concern for our industry, over and above all the peaks and the troughs that we go through, which we've gone through some and we're in one at the moment, is the saliency of travel retail is becoming less and less. I've got a relatively young team here in Dubai. They're all a lot younger than me. And until they came to work in our business, travel retail meant zero to them. Like they would not even consider buying something at the airport. They might consume some food, from Starbucks or from, McDonald's or one of the F&B. But going into duty free, buying alcohol, cigarettes, P&C just is not even in their repertoire. And that for us, when we look at our business, myself and Natalie, that's what scares the hell out of us. Because my generation, I was brought up that, you go through duty free, you get your allowance. The generation behind me is probably sort of halfway in between there and where I am. But the generation below that is actually, this just isn't relevant for me. This is the consumer that doesn't want to come into a shop in an airport. And that is a real big challenge that we're facing. And I think from my perspective, I've been in the industry nearly 15 years, and it is by far the worst it's been, in my view. And whilst COVID, I think, flattered us all because suddenly we got unbelievable penetration. In most instances, it doubled. That was because people weren't shopping domestically, and suddenly there was a shop to go in, and also they'd not left the house for a few months, so they had lots of spare money. Unfortunately, look now, not only have we gone back to 2019 levels, we've also started dropping now quite fast as well. And that curve's quite scary.
I think that's a good point, Roger. But also, when I was doing a bit of digging around on the figures I shared earlier, I came across a figure that the global retail um, GDP for one of or sector globally, and I'm talking the most from luxury down to mass and all categories, etc., is 33 trillion, or is predicted to be $33 trillion a year by 2026. So people are buying and will continue to be buying. But so therefore the relevancy, that key word is how to be relevant and how to engage that audience that are sat in front of the stores. I think the opportunity is there, but then I look at it from an agency perspective. A lot of the messages we're getting through from clients or brands in general are, really about cost consciousness. But I think that's really short-term P&L play, right? Because the investment in the brand building, not only of individual brands, but brand building of the channel. Everybody has a responsibility in building that brand. And by really going into this sort of cost cutting approach right now, I actually think that I worry that the sector will really be working against itself and effectively divesting um,
Yep.
through cost cutting.
But out of all of the campaigns you've done, and we've just spoke around how we've obviously got to try and bring consumers into our channel, which one for you has been the most fascinating? And I guess why? What's the best campaign you've had?
It's difficult when we're working through so many projects in a year with amazing brands in different categories, and every project has a challenge. But the one that I keep coming back to for a number of reasons. Firstly, I think it was slightly ahead of its time. It broke the ground in terms of really looking at the retail F&B hybrid model and working with such a powerful brand with such an ambitious retailer slash airport authority was probably the Oreo Cafe in Doha. Obviously it was with the renovation, a whole load of new space, but there was an expectation there from the airport authority to really set a new benchmark, and this was something completely new that we worked on with Mondelez, the first in the world concept. And as an agency, it really applied to our or appealed to our integrated strengths. So we were able to go from concept through to the helping manage the implementation of it, through to the communication and the amplification through a PR campaign after the launch. And to be able to be along that entire journey from sort of A to Z was really special. The numbers and the visibility, well, the performance was exceptional. It's amazing how many Oreo milkshakes you can sell in a day. But also then the PR campaign, over 20 million impressions in the first 2 months since launch. And for us, it really paved the way actually to a new relationship with Qatar Duty Free, where at the moment we count them as one of our major clients. Tab and his team are super supportive of us and vice versa. It's a really close collaboration. I don't like the whole agency client sort of label with partners and long-term partners. And the way we work together in terms of fostering new ideas, coming up with a lot of innovative thinking, I think is really the way to go when brands or when companies are working with agencies. In fact, don't call them agencies; they're partners of yours. And yeah, it's led the way to a lot of exciting projects. Currently developing a sunglasses concept for them. It's going to open in the middle of the year, but really unique, where we've worked with 5 of the major sunglasses suppliers, bringing them together into kind of a category management type project, doubling the space of the category in a standalone store. I think it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, airport sunglasses space. I'm really looking at how we switch the dial there in terms of a concept that's built for the future, built for the Gen Zs, far more engagement, all about the experience, and really look forward to sort of revealing that to the world in the middle of the year, alongside the brands, alongside Tab and his team. It's going to be something quite special. It's called U Studio.
I mentioned on the intro earlier that you're a rugby international, and there's not many of those. There's been a few in the trade down the years. Olivier Magna, the great French number 7, I believe he was. Alex, you'd know. He worked in the business for a while, maybe one or two others. But you're certainly the only current international. Tell us how that happened.
No, look, it's rugby's always been a part of my life. I went to a rugby school called Bromsgrove, just south of Birmingham in Worcestershire. And that was what we did. There was no football played at the school actually, and it was rugby 5 days a week, and then we'd play a game at the weekend as well. And that carried through to university, where I played in the top tier of the UK university rugby league. And this was around the time, I mean, professionalism was kind of bedding in by that point, but I mean, nowhere near the elite level that it is these days. Um, And post university, the plan, well, the plan was to kind of go into work, but still play rugby at a relatively high level and see how that also went. And so I was playing in the second tier of English rugby. But ultimately, injury sort of cut off that path, and I decided to focus on trying my first real job, as we say, in marketing and design. And then when I moved to Singapore, the opportunity there became a lot more, and I qualified through residency to play for Singapore. And yeah, was fortunate enough to play for 4 or 5 seasons in the national team there, traveling around Asia, playing the likes of Sri Lanka, Hong Kong, Philippines. Philippines was where my debut in a 40,000 seater stadium, playing in the national stadium in Singapore, and playing some. I mean, obviously, rugby within Asia is it's kind of, you've got your elite teams, the obviously Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and then it's sort of the next tier down. You're with the Koreas and the Hong Kongs, etc., and Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore are kind of on that periphery. So it's not elite sports level. Although I did face the haka once. I played against New Zealand universities, which was still an incredibly high standard, probably one of the best I've played against. Um, and yeah, just really fortunate, not to have been given that opportunity, and one that I really treasure. In fact, in my office, I've got my jerseys hung up there, pride of place, and great memories from that time. The season before last, I was fortunate to be part of the team that won the Mexico National Championship. And actually, last weekend I played in the final of the this season's competition against the same team that we beat the previous year. This time we didn't come out on the right side of the result, but again, still a great experience. Playing in that final and seeing what it means to very passionate Mexicans and a few thousand people watching. So not a bad atmosphere, and really enjoyed that.
Well, Roger, I actually think we've got a little bit of footage that might show that Alex is a very, very speedy number eight. Shall we take a look?
The Philippines move it left. Fly half chips over the top. No, he doesn't. Alex Cook on debut at 7 for Singapore has snaffled it. He could go all the way. He has.
Wow, Alex, a pretty mean turn of pace. Talk us through that try.
Well, the longer the years go on, the further that distance goes. I swear that was 70 meters this time round. It felt like it as I was being chased down from behind. But no, it was one of my first touches on my debut, playing in the Philippine arena in Manila. And yeah, just luckily enough that managed to catch the ball and just thought run, and fortunately my little legs managed to scuttle me.
All right, well, just before we take you to part two in the desert island, Roger and I got just a couple of quick fire questions, if we may. Outside of rugby and, of course, work, what are your key interests and passions?
I mean, I'm living in a new country on a new continent now. So, I mean, travel has always been a big part of life for me. But really spending that time exploring the country, just what a place. If anybody hasn't been to Mexico, I mean, you need a couple of months to do it justice with the diversity of the landscape, from the mountains to the desert to the jungle. You got the East Coast with the Caribbean. You got the West Coast with the Pacific. The food by region is just fantastic. They've got a growing under sort of under notice, but actually growing quite quickly, wine industry there in Baja California, Valle de Guadalupe. Very good wines. Um, going up to those kind of spots and just exploring the place. That's a real passion. And then
Yeah.
family, obviously. This business takes us away from our family a lot, but really maximizing that time that we can have together with them. I've got three wonderful children, two of whom live in the UK, and then my son in Mexico as well. Just trying to spend as much time as I can with them, helping them to see the world with their eyes wide open, really, and hopefully they sort of catch that same bug for travel and experiences that I have.
Finally, before we go to Desert Island, just one last one from me. Who has inspired you most in either your life or your career, Alex? It can either be both. Who would you say has been the biggest impact on you?
The man who gave me the first opportunity was a guy called Peter Lightfoot, who is still connected with the industry. I mean, I've got to be very thankful for him. Without him, I wouldn't be doing this right now. But then I just feel very lucky with all the people that I've come across over the years. Very early on projects, working alongside as account director with World Duty Free and BAA, the likes of Mark Riches, Sarah Branquino, these sort of people that are really have been such strong leaders in the business, and just learning from being associated by good people. But what I've also found is that the work becomes a filter. And I often find that, you come across those people that you don't get on so well with, or you don't connect with, but ultimately they get pushed to the side through through choice or just through situation, and you end up refining who you work with because you know that you connect well with them and you're able to do great work with them. And so, as time has gone on, just that process of a sort of refinement and just ending up just working with really talented, inspiring people, both within my team and on a client base. That's the bit that I think really has sort of inspired me. It's the people that we're surrounded by and what you can achieve when you work well together and when you're sort of clued into each other. You understand each other subliminally. And that's true of the media as well, Martin. I mean, obviously our company is probably the largest public relations company in the sector. And getting that intuitive understanding and connection with the media to know what really means something for you, what means something for our clients, what means something for the audience and the wider industry, and how to tell those stories in a really compelling way that adds value. And understanding that writing a press release about a new listing is not news. That's just a waste of your time and a waste of somebody reading it. But actually, what are the strategic stories that are going to try to shift the dial or educate the audience or inspire the audience? That's the bit that really kind of excites me. And again, it comes back to understanding the business and being inspired by great people to work with.
It's time to whiz your way to our desert island, our resident desert island, which does have, of course, duty-free status. We're taking you, as always, with our guests on our premium carrier, Tripod Airways, which you can see here. And I'm going to give you a few creature comforts to take with you, some services to enjoy while you're on the island. I'll kick off proceedings. We'll give you one duty-free item. Only one? What would you take there?
We have to go for the one product that is so synonymous with the channel, and that's the 360-gram Toblerone bar. No, nothing defines the channel more than that, and I think it should continue to be in that space, continue to work on owning that space.
And it is absolutely synonymous with the channel. You're right. If you went to a zillion people around the world and said, tell me one item that you associate with duty free, you have just nailed it. It is Toblerone. Roger, where are you going to take us next?
Just one thing on Toblerone. My wife came home from Aptra yesterday and she bought a big bag of Toblerone. And I said to her this morning, I said, how have you managed? I've got an 8-year-old daughter, Alex. And I said to her, how have you been able to leave those there unopened? And she's told my daughter they've got alcohol in. So my daughter now, until I'm presuming probably till she's 18, thinks that Toblerone's got alcohol in. Martin's met my daughter and knows her quite well. So yeah, just one for the Mondelez guys. Yeah, I've with my daughter, I've managed to keep her off Toblerone by telling her there's alcohol in it.
This is their problem, right? They have to keep fresh with the new consumers.
We're not leaving until I get my
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good.
It's not just a chocolate bar. Where's my Toblerone? I can scream and scream until I get it. I want my Toblerone. It's not just a chocolate. I want my Toblerone.
So we know what your G3 item is, which I'm also a big fan as well. Obviously, my daughter isn't. What would be your choice of music? So you can have a song or an album, and I guess why would you choose that one?
Having just, I'm currently in Malta, but I've obviously just flown from Mexico. There's an artist that's just absolutely smashing it there right now, and she's not new, but Shakira. She's just set a record for the amount of stadium seats filled over a tour for her leg in Mexico, and just seeing how big she is in that country, it's insane. 1 million people watched her concerts back to back, 7 in a row in Mexico City, plus Monterrey and Guadalajara. She's just actually put 3 more on the tour at the back end because she's making so much money from it, I think. But yeah, so I think she's now right front and center in Mexico. Everyone's talking about her. Everybody wanted to go to and try to get tickets for the concert. So I guess it's got to be Shakira greatest hits.
Great stuff. And with Shakira, and obviously with the Toblerone, you can also take some reading as well. So what book would you take on the island?
Oh, probably one that had most effect on me was a book called Atomic Habits. Just really good way to structure your life and how, when we're all so busy and how to get that consistency and that discipline in the way you go about conducting yourself and doing things and managing your life.
I thought, being a great back row forward, Alex, you might go for Richie McCaw's biography. I'll have to send you a copy.
That'll be in the dunny.
All right. Listen, we always allow our guests, after they've been in solitary for a while on the island, to invite 3 special dinner party guests for a magical dinner in this island paradise. They can be alive or they can be people from history, anyone at all. Who would be your choices, very quickly, and why?
Not easy, but one's good, rugby related. He seems like a really interesting character. Razzie Erasmus, 2-time Rugby World Cup winning coach, scourge of the Lions as well. But the way he's just redefining how to coach, his leadership philosophies, etc., and a little bit odd as well, and I quite like that. I need someone to make you laugh. Let's go Robin Williams. Robin Williams, not Robbie Williams. Just so charismatic, just so interesting, and full of joy when he was alive. I think so talented too. And then probably the third one. Let's go somebody British. I think Queen Elizabeth II, because the period of which she ruled, what she saw and what she witnessed, she would have some pretty interesting stories from her own life and from what she came across. And I think, just really, really interesting for good and for bad.
And then with those 3 amazing guests, what sort of food and wine would you said around? There was some fantastic wines in your region. What wine and food would you serve to your guests, Alex?
Well, would you believe it? All 3 of them are massive Mexican cuisine fans. No, gotta take the Mexican connection there, and yeah, we've got to go with some lobster and baja fish tacos with all the salsas. and the limes and the chiles. So yeah, a full Mexican sort of serving, maybe barbacoa. Yeah, washed down with some of the unknown Mexican wines from Valle de Guadalupe or Querétaro. In fact, unknown, or sort of very not known so well. Mexico actually now has its own native grape. The Nebbiolo has mutated in Valle de Guadalupe to become its own species, and so they now have their own native Nebbiolo.
Oh, wow.
Nebbiolo MX. I mean, it's still got some way to go in terms of the vines maturing and really producing top quality wine, but it's not bad. And yeah, I'd go with maybe with a bottle of that, just to something a little bit left field.
So Rassie and Robin and the late Queen will all be very, very well catered for. That would be a fascinating dinner party. All right, Alex, as always, now we close off. You've been a good sport, so we're going to put you back on tripod. We might move you up the front of the plane now. There's only 3 seats. And we'll take you anywhere in the world that might be on top of your bucket list. Where would it be and why?
One place would be Rugby HQ in Twickenham, because that's the place to watch rugby. But actually, one place that's really on my list is going down to Patagonia, really exploring the kind of the end of the earth down there, the rawness of the nature, amazing food down there as well, and yeah, seeing that part of the world in its sort of splendid isolation.
All right, well, we'll be landing in Mexico sometime soon, picking you up on tripod, and we'll be whisking you down to Patagonia. What a great trip that would be, with Roger and me as your very professional crew. Of course, Alex, you've been, as I said, a great sport today. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed it. We've learnt, a lot about you, the man, but also your very salient views on the travel retail sector and its evolution and its state of play, but also the whole communications and agency world, the spirit of partnership that you bring as an agency. It's fascinating to hear those views. So we wish you well as you in your mission to keep purpling the world. Keep doing that. I know you will. You'll never be marooned, but you will be purple through and through. Alex Cook, thanks for being with us today on Tripod. Well, that was Alex Cook trying to purple the world, Roger. A great communications man, retail design man, and their company, as I touched on, is very, very well regarded in this industry for its very nuanced approach. I enjoyed the conversation, and of course the world discovered that he's also a rather good rugby international. What did you make of the chat?
Yeah, well, I think it's our first international sports person on the show, which is amazing. So that's always a first. But it was great to hear from Alex. I'm lucky enough to have worked with Alex and yourself, obviously, Martin, on the Moodie Davitt Virtual Expo. And Alex and the company he was with, them Filter, were obviously heavily involved. So he's obviously very talented, and I've seen that firsthand. And then also to hear what he's doing with his latest venture just sounds absolutely incredible. And I think both of us have both eaten and had a drink at the Oreo Cafe. So to hear that he played a big role in that as well was pretty cool. So yeah, what a great guy and great guest.
Yeah, he was indeed. All right, well, we've got plenty more good guests for you, ladies and gentlemen, coming up. If you'd like to be on the show with Roger and I, drop us a line, and we'd like to feature you. But for now, this is Martin Moodie saying see you next time.